I'd like to ask the Minister for Policy and Reform when strategic policies in relation to population challenges will be agreed and implemented.
I want the Minister for Policy and Reform to reply.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Following on from the discussion paper Meeting Our Population Challenges, which presented a number of areas of possible policy development, the intention is to produce a further paper by the end of autumn 2018. That would be 31st of December 2018. This will include cross-government policy and actions taking into account the discussion that this government intends is stimulated by the first paper. However, I should remind members that both the original and the second year programme for government already include a wide range of outcomes and actions which will have an impact on the island's population and indeed are beginning already to have an impact. We will also be investigating the possibility of developing a population policy framework that can be used when developing future policies to help to understand the impact that these policies may have on the size and nature of the economically active population of our island.
Supplementary question, Mr Shimmins.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. And I am grateful for the response from the Minister, but slightly disappointed with the lack of pace as we look to address this important matter. 31st of December 2018 feels quite a long way away, given the 2016 census was published in March 2017, and after lots of requests, the Minister finally published the discussion paper at the end of February. Does he not consider that this is a matter of utmost importance which needs to be resolved prior to other important policies being progressed?
Minister to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy President. There is a certain naivety about population and changing the economically active population who live on the island. The whole of the government programme was designed in October, November 2016 to address our major challenges, and one of those major challenges is the economically active population. It's not the case that one politician can just say, we will have 1,000 extra people each year and they will all be 20 and 30-year-olds. It takes substantial initiative regarding housing, regarding employment, regarding in earnings around that employment, regarding travel initiatives, regarding the quality of life, perhaps profoundly the quality of life. So the active travel policy, the Year of Our Island, housing initiatives, earnings initiatives to do with the living wage, minimum wage, and also creating opportunities for businesses to come here and flourish here, taking on local people trained here, providing opportunities in schools and at the college so that local people can go off and come back or go straight into valuable career opportunities here. That's all part of this government programme, and that's what policy is about when we address the economically active population. There's no such thing as really as a separate population policy. This is at the heart of all government policy. However, a cross-department group of officers is working to bring together all of those policies in one document in the same way that we've tackled some of the other major challenges that we have. And it's not just policies, it's actions, timed actions, attributed actions, so that something happens, really happens, and we transform the trends in our population. And the last point that the Honourable Questioner might have missed is what I said at the end of my question, which is I'm looking to put together a framework for the assessment of major policies about the impact they will have on the economically active population. And as yet, I can't find anywhere else in the world that's done that, but that will be a major initiative if we can pull it off. So we actually have to assess other policies in terms of what their impact will be on the economically active population. I hope that's helpful, Honourable Members.
Supplementary question, Dr Allinson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Would the Minister agree that some of the parts of the jigsaw puzzle are already coming together? For instance, the Social Affairs Policy Review Committee recent report on nursery education has looked at shared parental leave. And would he also welcome the move by local businesses, such as Applebee's, to have Isle of Man bursary schemes to try to encourage graduates to come back to the island and continue living and working here?
Minister to reply.
Thank you very much, Deputy President, and I do completely agree that those two initiatives are a very important part of the of the arrangements that have been put in place and will continue to be put in place to deal with this one of our several major challenges at the moment.
Supplementary question, Mr. Cretney.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. Could I ask the Minister where he referred when he released it to a white paper, and Mr. Shimmins has referred to it as a discussion document. Whatever it is, can we have an assurance that ultimately it will come to this place for discussion and agreement or otherwise?
Minister to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President, and to the honourable questioner. This document is published, it's a public document. I could bring it to this chamber for discussion, so can every member. That's the wonderful thing about our honourable court. We don't have party systems as such. Any member could bring any item of this white paper or discussion paper to this court for positive approval, for discussion. I would like to thank at this juncture Mr. Paul Crane, who already had published a population index, who's worked thoroughly with me and with officers to prepare what will be a very helpful discussion at the Positive Action Group on the 30th of April, really engage with our numbers and our policies. I would like to think that the Chamber of Commerce, who've invited me to go along to a full chamber to take part in the discussion, will be doing the same, and we'll have a very lively discussion. And I also encourage other organisations out there and every member inside or outside this court to get involved in this discussion, because there are some major choices that can be made, and those choices shouldn't be made until we have a consensus in our society about what we want to do with our population, because we do have some profound challenges to do with the way that the population is developing and will continue to develop, and we can affect those changes by making some policy choices now, and we should do.
Supplementary question, Mr. Shimmins.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. I'm grateful for the Minister's response, and he's right to highlight that this is a complex issue. And indeed, he articulated this at some length when he brought a motion to this honourable court in April 2015, when he requested an action plan to be published by the Council of Ministers within 3 months on the ageing population and the demographic challenges. Members might wish to review the Hansard. There's some very excellent points made by the Honourable Mr. and Thomas. And at that time, he advised, we need a population policy when constructing our schools and designing our health and social care provision. He questioned the validity of the strategic plan, stating, do we really need 5,000 houses built before 2026? Times have changed. We're 3 years on, and the Minister is now happy to delay debate on population and the importance of the policy, when previously he was insisting that we considered that when considering important strategic matters. Why has he changed his tune?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the honourable questioners bringing to the attention of this honourable court and the wider public that I was a long way ahead of the game. So ever since 2013, as manifested in this court in my positive resolution in 2015, it has been important to have a population policy for this Isle of Man, for our Isle of Man, given the profound demographic changes. We do now have a population set of actions and outcomes, and it will be helpful to bring those all together into one document so people can see how connected and interconnected the policies that were put together in the programme for government really are to rise to these challenges, just like the Honourable Member for Ramsey, Dr Allenson, has outlined in respect of the Appleby internships and the Education Department activity that was referenced. You know, my foresight was recognised in Paul Crane's population policy. I get quoted from time to time in books, and my being so far ahead of the game was actually given a credit in this population atlas. And I can actually confirm that I would like to come to this honourable court with a positive debate earlier rather than later. But what I really want is I want society to fully engage in this discussion, and I've complimented a couple of people for beginning to get fully involved and actually helping us to explain the things. But I would very much hope that and the departments of government have joined together at senior officer level to put together the policies and the indicators in a way that they can be transformed into action plans across government and society, but we are facing some difficult choices, and building a consensus is necessary around those choices. The Isle of Man population could be very different in 10 years' time, and it certainly will be. It could be different for the better, it could be different probably for the worse, but we need to get society to come to a consensus about what the better and the worse looks like.
I have further 6 supplementaries indicated. Next up is Ms Edge.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. The Minister's talked about policies, economically active, transform trends, profound challenges. I'm just wondering, within the policy and the working groups, are they considering what they will do if there is a decrease in our population, so there's a decline, which I think it seemed to come as a bit of a shock, the census report to the government at the time, and obviously I have already previously asked a question about population decline and what are we going to do if there is a population decline, and I hope that when he's doing these new policies, will he be coming back with some positive report in that area as to how we're developing and how we're investing our money if there is a further decline?
Minister to reply.
Thank you. In fact, the census wasn't a shock to government, because since 2015, as a consequence probably of my motion, government has been estimating the population, which was projecting that it would be lower than the 2011 census in 2016. And what we've done for the first time, and congratulations and thanks to the officers for that, is we have actually published ranges, which we have a model now, which we've published for the first time. And Mr Crane, for the PAG meeting, has asked us to make other assumptions, which we have done for him, to incorporate in his presentation slides. And one of those includes a decline of 200 in the population for the next 10 or 15 years, so that we can see what that would look like, and we can change it in terms of assumptions about age profiles. Genuinely, it's an eye-opener for me. I need more people to engage in this discussion. It's no good just saying we need 1,000 people more and it's going to happen. That's not actually that helpful. We need to describe those 1,000 people more, and then we actually need to understand that that's never ever happened before, even in the glory days of our island, that we've had 1,000 people before. So we need to understand the projections, we need to model those projections, and we probably need to have this framework against which we use to assess all of the major policy changes in housing, in health, in care, in education, in all the other areas that will impact on the economically active population, to understand what impact they might well have on the demography, i.e. the age characteristic and the nature, or the overall number of people in our island and living and working in our island. It is a special place. The infrastructures can cope with thousands more, basically, but we need employment, we need good quality employment, we need the quality of life, we need people to perceive that their life and their career opportunities can be here, and that's what this document and this moment is all about, seizing the opportunity to make sure the population that we have here is happy to be here and has got great career and life opportunities by being here.
Supplementary question, Mrs Paul Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. In the discussion paper, I wonder if the Minister can shine some light on this. There is relatively little around attracting what I would call the individuals who are in their 30s and 40s, who perhaps are originally from the Isle of Man, but for various reasons may have lived elsewhere for a period. And so I wonder whether the Minister can shed any light on whether that group of people, who may indeed be very attracted to move back, and I count myself in that number, to move back to the island for quality of life reasons, so whether that group of people are being, there are work streams being considered as to how to continue attracting them. And I think, additionally, in terms of our economically active population, I wonder whether the Minister agrees with me that there are probably a number of people, particularly women, currently on the island who are not economically active, but would choose to be, provided we can make some policy decisions and take forward some work streams that would enable that. And I note that the references that have already been made, but I wonder whether the Minister would also tell us more about whether work streams can be brought forward that would enable that, and I'm thinking about particularly shared parental leave, but also initiatives that are going on in the UK to look at why the uptake of shared parental leave has been particularly low, and what else we need to do around maternity and paternity pay in particular.
Bit of a barrage there for you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy President. Excellent questions, and I think I've answered about paternity and maternity allowances and pay, shared parental leave, that the Department for Enterprise had considered bringing those forward as a schedule to the Equality Bill that I took through but decided not to, and I would like members here of the Department for Enterprise to pursue that as actively as they possibly can, because certainly there does seem to be a slight degree of underemployment in economic terms of women, and there could be various explanations of that, but one could be this sort of thing, and let's explore it. And I hope, Mr Deputy President, that the Equality Champion would also agree with me that there might also be opportunities to create interesting, exciting lives working for older people and for more people who are not as yet enabled at work. In the olden days used to be called disabled people, but let's make them enabled people with extra opportunity, if we can create opportunities for them. Mr Deputy President, I was also asked about creating opportunities for 30s and 40-year-olds, and again, that's primarily for the Department for Enterprise, supported by Treasury and Cabinet Office. I believe the Department for Enterprise Minister, the Minister for Enterprise, and the political members responsible will be announcing major initiatives regarding locate.im at the forthcoming Isle Expo, which is an initiative coordinated across government through things like Year of Our Island discussions, because we are trying to present the quality of life in our island as being something that's valuable for 30 and 40-year-olds born here, coming back here, or people away who want to come here to make new lives as come-overs initially, and in fact everybody, because if you have a buzzing place, a place with a quality of life, it will be attractive to Manxes to come home, or for new people to come here and become come-over Manx people. One point I would say about 30s and 40-year-old Manx people who are currently working away, they know about the island already. They know what it's like to have been brought up here. They know what's good about it and what's bad about it. So in some senses it's harder to make an influence through marketing to those sorts of people because they already know all the facts. Perhaps we could say that we should be looking at 30 and 40-year-olds as well as 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds and so on who don't know anything about the island, to get this put into their equations about their future lives and careers.
Supplementary question, Mr Cretney.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy President. As a leader of a party who goes out of its way to promote discussion, I welcome the honourable member's commitment to discuss with Positive Action Group and Chamber of Commerce and others. My question was, will ultimately the policy be decided and determined in this place, because this is where it should be?
Minister to reply.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr President, Mr Deputy President, and I'd like to thank the questioner and also the Honourable Member for Legislative Council, who's actually allowed the beginnings of a debate to take place in this chamber, and I can give a positive I can affirm positively that by 31st of December we will have a substantive debate in this court, and I can repeat my invitation to any member to bring any debate about any aspect of this earlier. But very importantly, I want to say that the programme for government is already a population policy. One of the macro indicators for one of our three key strategic objectives is the number of economically active population. Each quarter we are publishing data about the economically active population. We are monitoring it. We're developing better systems to monitor it. We have a set of policies that we designed around increasing the economically active population locally and things like locate.im. And so we have a population policy already, but I do confirm to the honourable questioner and to this honourable court that we will come for a debate by the end of the autumn, no later than December, Tim Ward, as well.
Supplementary question, Mr Henderson.
Duramayo Ectoren I'd like to ask the Minister for Policy and Reform what he meant by his statement in answering various supplementaries, what we'd like to do with our population. It sounds somewhat sinister. Is he advocating mass population movements to the cart of man? Could he elaborate on what he means by that? Also, will he agree with me that in his studies of the various policy strands he speaks of, that demographic and epidemiological studies that are currently being undertaken and have been undertaken will be used in the progression of those policies? Special reference to work that had been done at Nobles Hospital. But more specifically and importantly, will he be looking at the intergenerational separation of various age groups within the population? There seems to be the trend in various large countries anyway, and how we produce a reconnectedness between our elders, medium-aged population and younger-aged population, as that's vitally important to the integrity of our communities.
Minister to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy President, and to the Honourable Member of Council for his helpful question. Apologies for any word that sounded dodgy, as was suggested. I've been neurotic practically about this very point ever since I started talking about fertility and the rate at which people morbidity and mortality and so on and so on. So it's very hard to be a politician talking about population. All I mean by any word I use is that there are choices about houses, there are choices about the sorts of businesses that we come here, there are choices about education, there are choices about work permits, earnings, benefits that have an impact on the people who live in our island, and that's all I mean. This politician is just trying to make sure that it's understood what possible impacts there will be of changes to any of those policies. The work that's gone on at Nobles Hospital and more generally in public health across the sector is vital, and recently, working with the Cabinet Office member, political member, we're really trying to put together a complete set of data about everything with a protocol, with coordination, so we don't waste any resources and the Treasury Minister's unhappy, so that we have all the data that can be taken into account as we make decisions about housing. Honourable Questioner also raised the issue of intergenerational fairness, and a paper will be coming on intergenerational fairness no later than October 2018, if not before. It's already written in its first draft, and it's been circulated to the Council of Ministers subcommittees. And I think that's everything covered, Mr Deputy President.
Nearly. The final supplementary question is in the hands of the original questioner, Mr Shimmins.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President, and I'm most grateful to the responses from the Minister to various questions. Some time ago, the Minister, in response to a previous question, said it was important we got onto this earlier rather than later, which does feel an important imperative, given we started out in 2015, and in the interim, decisions are being made on the basis of the strategic plan, which is out of sync with the actual population. Health and education are facing important decisions in the absence of a thought-out population policy and plan. Will he not commit to bring forward the December date, which lacks ambition and is a matter of concern?
Minister's reply.
Thank you very much. We have a well thought out population policy in practice, and the officers will put it together into one document as soon as possible, and I note that at least one honourable member would want that sooner in the autumn rather than later in the autumn. And the point I want to make is that there's a degree of success already from the policies that we have in place. So there was a decline in population, which we seem to have reversed, and there are green shoots about it. So there are 600 more in employment. There are 300 more people here, of whom slightly more than half are younger people, at least younger than 65. And we're constantly working on trying to address some global trends, some British Island trends to make things work for people living here, and perhaps also, and necessarily also, people to come here. It is an imperative. Personally, I've been working on it since 2013. I obviously won the debate in 2015, even though I lost the vote, and I'm absolutely delighted that we now have an integrated population policy that just needs to be written down. Just needs to be written down.